what the heck are smart drugs?
Sure. In Game Changers, I interviewed almost 500 people who've done big things, including you, things that are world-changing, leading in their categories, and said, what are the commonalities? What do people agree on? And the three big buckets where people who do big things generally do things to become smarter, to become faster, and to become happier. Like they do big things because they're happier. They're not happy because they did big things. And it turns out that one of the ways that people do perform better is using either pharmaceuticals or plant-based compounds to improve their cognitive function. We've known about some of these for 50 plus years. They are well studied. Some of them have famous movies like Limitless, roughly based on them. And I've been using them for 20 years. The idea that they can't work, therefore they don't, is well entrenched in Western medicine. But when you look at the studies, particularly around modafinil, one of the smart drugs that I write about in Game Changers, the studies are pretty convincing that it actually does increase cognitive performance in some domains. In my case, I had this brain fog that was really a problem, and it's gone now. When I eat the right stuff, I perform at a very high level, even for what I would have done when I was in my 20s and I'm in my 40s. But for 8 years, I took modafinil. It improved my meditation practice quantitatively with EEG. It improved my relationships. I got my MBA at Wharton while working full-time at a startup. And it basically made me better at almost everything I did. I don't actually benefit much from taking it now. I feel a tiny bump, but it's barely noticeable compared to before. It was like someone turned the lights on. So all of us can benefit. And some of these compounds actually reduce aging of the brain and of other tissues in the body. They improve performance of mitochondria, the power plants in the cells that your viewers are no doubt familiar with. And so why aren't we all using these is my big question.
So give me another example that any of us could use every day.
Well, there are two of Mother Nature's cognitive enhancers that I would argue the vast majority of great works of literature and songwriting have been written on. The number one is coffee. This is a well-studied smart drug. It's a plant compound. Maybe it's not a drug. It's a nootropic, a cognitive enhancer, because coffee is not technically a drug because you don't have to get a prescription for it. Right. You're a doctor. You know what I'm talking about. But the other one is nicotine, which is actually more studied than caffeine as a cognitive enhancer. It'll improve your typing speed by 15%. And according to a professor from Vanderbilt University I interviewed on my show, since 1988, low doses of oral nicotine, and not smoking, which is just bad for you and will make you old and make you die from various causes, but nicotine itself seems to reverse Alzheimer's disease in studies going back 30 years. So interesting. Those two smart drugs are part of daily life for more people on the planet than not, and they work. Yet somehow new compounds we discovered are other plant compounds like a seaweed extract called apigenin or rosemary extract. And some of these I actually have put into a cognitive enhancement formulas that I take. There's studies, they show that they work, but most of us just don't think it's possible. So we just kind of happily go out without the same IQ we could have.
Yeah, I think nicotine is fascinating. I've always actually taught my patients that nicotine is probably one of the best drugs ever designed for cognition and enhancement, but it's in the wrong delivery device. And there are actually very interesting studies of smokers that they actually have a very low incidence of Parkinson's and Alzheimer's. And one of my favorite groups to study is the Kitavans or Kitavans in the beginning. And they smoke like fiends. They all smoke. They don't have
eat a ton of fat.
Yeah, they eat a ton of fat
and a ton of fat.
That's right. A ton of carbs and a ton of fat. And they have no heart disease. There's never been a stroke. They live into their mid-90s with no medical care. And so you're right. I think nicotine is underappreciated. Now, that does not mean that I think that means, and you're not telling everybody to go out and put a nicotine patch on tomorrow.
Well, even vaping is a bad idea.
Right.
What I would say is the data says that either oral nicotine, as in a gum or a spray, or a patch, could be beneficial at very low doses. My favorite way is a company called Lucy Gum, because most nicotine gum has really bad sweeteners that destroy your gut bacteria, as you well understand. I don't put that stuff in my mouth. Lucy made a clean nicotine gum that doesn't have anything bad in it. So you can chew a piece of that, and then you get a low dose of nicotine. You do that maybe once a day. And for some people, you'll do any amount of nicotine, you'll want to throw up. Your brain doesn't need that. And if you do 10 of those a day, it's probably not a great idea. But if you're talking a couple milligrams of nicotine on a daily basis, before maybe, for me, before I sat down to write Game Changers, I would use a milligram of nicotine. Before this show, I used a milligram of nicotine. When I want to really have my brain working even better, that little extra edge, I do that. I had a cup of Bulletproof coffee too, and like, it's okay. This is what most good performers do before they go on stage. They have the stuff that makes them like bring it all the way. And nicotine deserves a place. Just don't smoke, don't vape. Neither one of those is good for you.